The rain came down in sheets that night, the kind that soaks through skin and settles into bones. Most people in the city had somewhere to go when the sky opened up like that, but Emma didn't. She'd been living in a makeshift tent under the overpass for 3 weeks, a tattered blue tarp stretched between shopping carts and held down with rocks. The concrete beneath her stayed cold no matter how many layers of cardboard she laid down, and the sound of water drumming against plastic had become the soundtrack to her sleepless nights. She was 19 years old, though the street had a way of aging people beyond their years. Her hands were calloused and dirty, her hair tangled and tucked under a beanie that had seen better days. The clothes she wore were donated, mismatched, and several sizes too large. But her eyes still held something most people on the street eventually lost. A quiet determination. A refusal to disappear completely. Emma hadn't always lived like this. 6 months ago, she'd had a bedroom with posters on the walls, a part-time job at a coffee shop, and plans to go to community college. Then her mother got sick. The kind of sick that drains bank accounts and hope in equal measure. Emma dropped everything to take care of her, watching her mother fade a little more each day until one morning, she didn't wake up at all. The funeral ate what little savings they had. The landlord wouldn't wait. And just like that, Emma found herself carrying everything she owned in 2 garbage bags, learning how to become invisible in a city that didn't want to see her. The night it happened, Emma had one thing left that felt like a small piece of dignity. A sandwich. She'd stood in line at the shelter that afternoon for nearly 2 hours, shuffling forward with dozens of others who wore the same exhausted expression. When she finally reached the front, a volunteer handed her a turkey sandwich wrapped in plastic, an apple, and a bottle of water. She'd saved the sandwich for dinner, rationing the apple throughout the day, taking small bites to make it last. Now, as the rain intensified and the temperature dropped, she sat on a milk crate just inside her tent, holding that sandwich in her lap. Her stomach had been growling for hours, a hollow ache that made her lightheaded. She peeled back the plastic wrap slowly, breathing in the smell of processed meat and white bread. It wasn't much, but it was hers. That's when she heard the motorcycle. The engine's roar cut through the sound of rain, growing louder as it approached the overpass. Emma tensed. She'd learned to be wary of vehicles that slowed down near her tent. Sometimes people threw things. Sometimes they yelled. Sometimes they just stared like she was an exhibit in a zoo. She pulled her knees to her chest and waited for it to pass. But it didn't pass. The motorcycle came to a stop maybe 20 feet from her tent. The engine cut off, leaving only the rain. Emma's heart hammered against her ribs. She could see the silhouette of the rider through the gap in her tarp, a large figure climbing off the bike with heavy movements. She heard boots splashing through puddles, getting closer. Then a voice, gruff and tired. Bike broke down. Need to make a call. Emma didn't move. She'd heard enough warnings about talking to strangers, especially out here where no one could hear you scream. I'm not going to hurt you. The voice said, softer this time. Just need to use a phone. Mine's dead. She forced herself to peek through the gap. The man standing in the rain was massive, easily 6'3", wearing a leather jacket plastered with patches. She couldn't make out all the details in the dark, but she saw enough. The vest, the insignia, the unmistakable markings of a motorcycle club. A Hell's Angel. Emma had seen them before, rolling through the city in packs, engines thundering like a storm. People moved out of their way. Police watched them carefully. And here was one, standing in the rain outside her tent, asking for help. I don't have a phone, she said quietly. Her voice sounded small even to her own ears. The man nodded, rain streaming down his face. He didn't look angry, just defeated. Figures. You know where I might find one around here. Gas station. 4 blocks east. She pointed, though she knew he probably couldn't see the gesture in the dark. He stood there for a moment, water pooling around his boots. Then he looked at her tent, really looked at it, taking in the shopping carts and the way the tarp sagged under the weight of accumulated rain. You live here? He asked. Emma didn't answer. The question felt rhetorical. In this weather? I don't have anywhere else. The silence that followed felt heavy. She watched him shift his weight, saw him glance back at his broken-down bike, then back at her. He was shivering now, the cold and wet finally getting to him. That's when Emma did something she couldn't fully explain, even to herself. Something that defied every survival instinct she'd developed over the past 3 weeks. She held out the sandwich. You look hungry, she said. The man stared at the offering like it was a foreign object. That yours? Yeah. When's the last time you ate? Emma didn't want to answer that. When's the last time you did? He let out a sound that might have been a laugh. I'm not taking your food, kid. I'm offering it. She pushed it toward him, still wrapped in plastic. It's just going to get soggy anyway with all this rain. You're homeless and you're trying to feed me? You're stranded and you look cold. Just take it. For a long moment, the man didn't move. Then, slowly, he reached out and accepted the sandwich. His hands were scarred and massive, making the sandwich look like a child's toy. He unwrapped it carefully, like it was something precious, and took a bite. Then another. He ate it slowly, methodically, and when he was finished, he folded the plastic wrap into a neat square and tucked it into his pocket. What's your name? He asked. Emma. I'm Cole. He extended his hand, and she shook it. His grip was warm despite the rain. Thank you, Emma. I mean that. It's just a sandwich. No, he said, and his voice had changed, become something more serious. It's not. He turned and walked back to his motorcycle, pulling out his phone. Emma watched him make several attempts to revive it before giving up. Then he did something unexpected. He took off his leather jacket and walked back to her tent. Here, he said, holding it out. I can't take that. You gave me your dinner. I'm giving you something to stay warm. We'll call it even. The jacket was still warm from his body heat. Emma pulled it around her shoulders and felt warmth spread through her chest for the first time in weeks. It smelled like leather and motor oil and cigarettes, but underneath that, something clean. Cole made the walk to the gas station, and Emma watched his figure disappear into the rain. She didn't expect to see him again. People made promises on the street all the time and never followed through. She'd learned not to hold her breath. But 40 minutes later, he came back. He had a tow truck following him, yellow lights flashing in the darkness. While the driver worked on loading the motorcycle, Cole approached her tent again. He was soaked to the bone, shivering hard now. Listen, he said, I don't forget things like what you did. Where I'm from, that kind of thing matters. Emma just nodded, unsure what to say. I'm coming back, Cole told her. I don't know when, but I'm coming back. That's a promise. Then he was gone, climbing into the tow truck and disappearing into the night. Emma sat in his jacket for a long time, trying to convince herself that it had actually happened. Eventually, exhaustion pulled her under, and she slept better than she had in weeks. 3 days passed. The rain stopped, but the cold remained. Emma went through her routine, waking up before dawn to avoid the worst of the harassment, walking to the library when it opened to use the bathroom and wash her face in the sink, spending the day trying to be invisible. She returned to the shelter for meals, stood in the same lines, ate the same bland food. At night, she went back to her tent and tried to sleep through the sounds of traffic and distant sirens. She thought about Cole sometimes, wondered if he'd been serious about coming back. But mostly she tried not to think about anything at all. Hope was dangerous out here. It made you vulnerable. On the 4th day, Emma heard the motorcycles. Not one, dozens. The sound started as a distant rumble, like thunder rolling in from the horizon. It grew louder, closer, until the air itself seemed to vibrate with the collective roar of engines. Emma emerged from her tent to see what was happening and froze. They came around the corner in formation, a river of chrome and leather and raw power. Motorcycles of every make and model, each one piloted by someone wearing the same patches, the same colors. Hell's Angels. Not just a few, not a small group. A full chapter, maybe more. Emma counted 10, then 20, then stopped counting because they kept coming. The lead bike pulled to a stop near her tent, and the rider dismounted. Cole. He'd kept his promise. But nothing could have prepared Emma for what happened next. One by one, the motorcycles parked in a wide semicircle around her tent. Riders dismounted and stood in the rain-slicked street, a wall of leather and muscle and barely contained energy. There had to be at least 150 of them, maybe more. They filled the space under the overpass, their presence transforming the abandoned stretch of concrete into something else entirely. Emma's legs felt weak. She wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. They'd surrounded her completely. Cole walked toward her, and now she could see his face clearly. He was smiling. Told you I'd be back, he said. What is this? Emma's voice came out as barely a whisper. You helped me when you had nothing, Cole said. Where I'm from, that kind of loyalty gets rewarded. He gestured to the assembled riders. Emma, meet my brothers. One of the riders stepped forward, an older man with a gray beard and hard eyes. He carried himself with the kind of authority that didn't need announcement. This was someone important. "You're the girl who gave Cole her food?" the man asked. Emma nodded, unable to speak. "Name's Marcus. I run this chapter." He looked around at the tent, the shopping carts, the cardboard. "And this is where you've been living?" "Yes, sir." Marcus's expression darkened. He turned to the assembled riders. "You all hear that? This girl, she's got nothing. Less than nothing. And she still fed one of ours when he was stranded." A murmur ran through the crowd. Emma couldn't read the mood. Were they angry? Impressed? She felt like she might pass out. "Cole told us what you did," Marcus continued. "Told us you gave him the only food you had. Didn't ask questions. Didn't want anything in return. Just saw someone who needed help and helped them." He paused, letting the words sink in. "That's character. That's the kind of thing that matters." He looked at Emma directly. "We take care of our own. And as of right now, you're one of ours." Emma didn't understand. What do you mean?" "I mean you're not sleeping under this overpass anymore," Marcus said. "We've got a place for you. Nothing fancy, but it's got 4 walls and a roof that doesn't leak. Heat. Running water. It's yours for as long as you need it." Emma's knees buckled. She caught herself against one of the shopping carts. I can't pay for that." "Didn't ask you to," Marcus said. "Consider it a debt repaid." "But I just gave him a sandwich." "And what else did you have to give?" Cole's voice was gentle. "You gave me everything. That's worth more than money." The other riders began moving then, with purpose and coordination. They descended on Emma's tent like a well-oiled machine. Some began gathering her few belongings with surprising care. Others started breaking down the tent structure. Within minutes, everything she owned was packed into the saddlebags of several motorcycles. A woman rider approached Emma. She was younger than Marcus and Cole, with kind eyes and tattoos running up both arms. "I'm Sarah," she said. "I've got a truck waiting 2 blocks over. Figured you might not want your first ride to be on the back of a motorcycle." Emma found herself being guided to a pickup truck where Sarah had laid out clean blankets. The seat was warm. The radio played soft music. Sarah drove carefully, talking in a low, soothing voice about the apartment they were taking her to, about the furniture that was already there, about the pantry they'd stocked that morning. "We've been organizing this for 3 days," Sarah explained. "Ever since Cole told us about you. Called in favors, pooled resources. The club owns the building. You'll have neighbors, but they're good people. Quiet. No one's going to bother you." Emma watched the city pass by the window, trying to process what was happening. It felt like a dream, like she'd wake up any moment back under the overpass with rain pounding against tarp. The apartment was on the 3rd floor of an older building in a working-class neighborhood. Sarah unlocked the door and gestured for Emma to enter first. It was small. A studio with a kitchenette, a bathroom with a shower, a main room with a bed, a couch, and a small table. But to Emma, it looked like a palace. The walls were painted a soft cream color. Sunlight streamed through clean windows. The bed had actual sheets and pillows. The refrigerator hummed quietly in the corner. "We'll give you some time to settle in," Sarah said. "There's food in the kitchen, toiletries in the bathroom, clean clothes in the dresser, different sizes because we weren't sure what would fit. Take a shower. Rest. We'll check on you tomorrow." Emma stood in the center of the apartment, unable to move. Sarah gave her shoulder a gentle squeeze and left, closing the door softly behind her. For a long time, Emma just stood there. Then, slowly, she walked to the bathroom and looked at herself in the mirror for the first time in weeks. She barely recognized the face staring back. Hollow cheeks, dark circles, hair matted and lifeless. She looked like a ghost of herself. She turned on the shower and waited for the water to heat up. Steam filled the small bathroom. She stepped under the spray and felt the warmth cascade over her skin, washing away layers of dirt and fear and exhaustion. She stood there until the water ran cold, then stood there a while longer, crying silently as weeks of held-back emotion finally broke free. When she emerged, she found clean clothes laid out on the bed, jeans that fit, a soft sweater, socks without holes. She dressed slowly, marveling at the simple pleasure of fabric that didn't scratch or hang loose. The kitchen had been stocked with basics: bread, peanut butter, eggs, milk, pasta, canned vegetables. Emma made herself a sandwich, the first meal she'd prepared for herself in a real kitchen in months. She ate it sitting at the small table, tasting every bite, letting herself believe that this was real. Night fell. Emma climbed into the bed, pulling the clean sheets around her. The mattress was firm but comfortable. The pillow cradled her head. For the first time in months, she felt safe. The city sounds filtering through the window seemed distant, almost peaceful. She slept for 14 hours straight. When she woke, sunlight was streaming through the windows. There was a knock at the door. Emma answered it to find Marcus standing in the hallway with a cardboard box. "Morning," he said. "Brought you some more supplies. Figured you might need kitchen stuff, some books, whatever." Emma invited him in. Marcus set the box on the table and pulled out a chair. "How you feeling?" he asked. "Like I'm dreaming." "You're not." He smiled, the expression softening his weathered features. "This is real. You're safe here." "I don't understand why you're doing this," Emma said quietly. "I didn't do anything special. I just gave someone a sandwich." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "Let me tell you something about the club. People see the leather, the bikes, the reputation, and they make assumptions. Think we're all criminals and thugs. Some of that's deserved. We've got history. But there's another side most people don't see." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "The club is about loyalty. Brotherhood. Taking care of your own. When someone shows that same kind of character, even when they've got nothing, that means something to us. You could have kept that sandwich. You were hungry, homeless, scared. But you saw someone who needed help and you helped them without thinking twice. That's the kind of person we respect." "Cole was one person," Emma said. "You brought 150 writers. Because that's how we operate. When one of us decides something matters, all of us back it up. Cole vouched for you. That means you're vouched for. Period." Marcus stood to leave, then turned back. "One more thing. We're not going to run your life or tell you what to do. This apartment is yours. No strings. But if you need help, any kind of help, you call me." He handed her a card with a phone number written on it. "Job, school, someone bothering you, whatever. You're part of the family now. That means something." After he left, Emma sat at the table for a long time, turning the card over in her hands. Family. The word felt foreign and precious at the same time. The days that followed developed their own rhythm. Emma spent the first week simply adjusting to having a place to call home. She learned the quirks of the apartment. The faucet that dripped if you didn't turn it hard enough, the floorboard that creaked near the window, the way afternoon light painted patterns on the wall. She cooked simple meals and ate them slowly, savoring each bite. She took long showers and washed her clothes in the building's laundry room. She slept in a real bed and woke without the constant edge of fear. But she also knew she couldn't just hide in the apartment forever. Emma had been out of school for nearly a year, had lost her job when her mother got sick, had watched every plan she'd made dissolve into survival mode. Now, with stability beneath her feet for the first time in months, she felt the weight of possibility settling over her. What did she want to do? Who did she want to become? She started small. The library became her sanctuary again, but this time she wasn't just using the bathroom and trying to stay warm. She spent hours researching GED programs, community college courses, job training opportunities. She filled out applications on the public computers, carefully listing the new address Marcus had given her, the address that finally made her look like someone worth hiring. 2 weeks after moving into the apartment, Emma got a call back from a local diner. They needed a breakfast waitress, early shifts, minimum wage plus tips. It wasn't glamorous, but it was something. She borrowed clothes from Sarah for the interview and showed up 15 minutes early, resume in hand, trying to project confidence she didn't quite feel. The manager was a tired woman named Diane who looked like she'd seen it all and wasn't impressed by much. She glanced at Emma's sparse resume and asked the question Emma had been dreading. "Gap here. Almost a year. What were you doing?" Emma had prepared for this. She'd practiced the answer in the mirror, trying to find the balance between honesty and discretion. "Taking care of my mother. She was sick. After she passed, I had some housing instability. But I'm stable now. I have a permanent address, and I'm ready to work." Diane studied her for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Breakfast shift starts at 5 a.m. You'll work 6 days a week. It's hard work. Feet hurt, customers can be rude, and the coffee's terrible. You think you can handle it?" "Yes, ma'am." "Then you start Monday. Don't be late." Emma walked out of the diner in a daze. She had a job. An actual job. She wanted to tell someone, to share the news, but there was no one to call. Her mother was gone. She had no other family, no close friends left from her old life. Everyone had drifted away when things got hard. But she had the card Marcus had given her. Emma called the number, and Cole answered on the second ring. Emma? Everything okay? Everything's fine. Good, actually. I got a job. There was a pause, then a whoop of celebration so loud Emma had to pull the phone away from her ear. That's amazing. We're celebrating. Sarah and I are coming to get you in 20 minutes. We're taking you to dinner. You don't have to. We want to. 20 minutes. Be ready. They took her to a steakhouse, a real one with cloth napkins and waiters in vests. Emma had never been anywhere like it. She protested the expense, but Sarah just laughed and told her to order whatever she wanted. Over dinner, Emma learned more about her unlikely benefactors. Cole worked as a mechanic at a shop the club owned. Sarah was a nurse at the county hospital. Marcus ran a construction company and had been with the club for 30 years. They weren't the stereotypes Emma had imagined. They were regular people who happened to find family in an unconventional place. Can I ask you something? Emma said, pushing her fork through the remains of her meal. Why did you really do all this? And don't say it's just because of a sandwich. Cole and Sarah exchanged glances. It was Cole who spoke. When I was 18, I was homeless too, he said quietly. Different circumstances, but same result. Living on the street, eating out of dumpsters, sleeping in shelters when I could get a bed. I was angry at the world, getting into fights, heading down a bad road. He took a drink of his beer. One night, I'm trying to sleep in a park and these guys roll up. 3 of them, looking for trouble. I'm ready to fight, ready to go down swinging. But then 5 motorcycles pull up. Hell's Angels. They chase off the guys trying to jump me. And then Marcus, same Marcus who brought you that box of supplies. He asked me if I'm hungry. Emma listened, transfixed. They took me to a diner. Fed me. Listened to my story. Then Marcus made me an offer. Said if I was willing to work, he'd give me a job at his construction company. Said if I needed a place to stay, they had a room available. No judgment. No lecture. Just help. That was 15 years ago, Sarah added. And he's been with the club ever since. So when you helped me, Cole continued, it brought all that back. Made me remember what it felt like to have nothing and have someone see you anyway. See you as a person worth helping. I wanted to pay that forward. The club agreed. Emma felt tears building again. I don't know how to thank you. You don't have to thank us, Sarah said. Just do the same thing someday. When you're stable, when you're on your feet, and you see someone who needs help, help them. That's how this works. Emma started work at the diner the following Monday. The alarm went off at 4 a.m., and she dragged herself out of bed in the darkness, her body protesting the early hour. But she showed up on time, learned the routine, memorized the menu. The work was exactly as hard as Diane had promised. Her feet ached by noon. Her hands got burned on hot plates. She smiled through customer complaints and bad tips and the endless demands of the breakfast rush. But every night, she went home to her apartment, her bed, her kitchen, her space. And every 2 weeks, she deposited a paycheck into a new bank account Sarah had helped her open. The months passed in a rhythm of work and routine. Emma enrolled in a GED program at the community center, attending classes 2 nights a week after her shifts. The material came back to her slowly, math and reading comprehension and essay writing. She studied at her kitchen table late into the night, fueled by cheap coffee and determination. The club checked in regularly, but never intrusively. Marcus stopped by once a month with supplies, or just to talk. Sarah invited her to ladies' night at a bar the club frequented, introducing her to other women connected to the organization. Cole kept his motorcycle in good shape and occasionally took Emma for rides through the city, the wind in her hair and the engine's roar drowning out everything else. Emma learned that the Hells Angels weren't monolithic. They were individuals who'd chosen a particular kind of family structure. Some had criminal records. Others were veterans or blue-collar workers or business owners. They operated in a gray area, loyalty and brotherhood valued above conventional morality. Emma didn't agree with everything they did, didn't participate in club business, but she understood the core principle. They took care of their own. And somehow, improbably, she'd become one of their own. 6 months after moving into the apartment, Emma passed her GED exam. She celebrated alone at first, sitting in her apartment with the certificate in her hands, hardly believing it was real. Then she called Marcus, and within an hour, her apartment was full of people. Cole and Sarah brought champagne. Other club members showed up with food. They filled her small space with noise and laughter and congratulations, and Emma felt something she hadn't felt in over a year. Joy. Pure, uncomplicated joy. That night, after everyone had left, Emma sat at her table and wrote a letter. She addressed it to no one in particular, just words on a page, trying to capture what the past 6 months had meant. She wrote about the night in the rain, about Cole's broken-down motorcycle, about the sandwich she'd handed over without thinking. She wrote about the sound of 150 motorcycles pulling up to her tent, about the terror and confusion and overwhelming gratitude that had followed. She wrote about learning to trust again, to hope again, to believe that the world still had room for kindness. She wrote about her mother, about the grief that still hit her in unexpected moments, about the guilt of moving forward when her mother couldn't, but also about the certainty that her mother would have been proud, would have loved this strange, imperfect family Emma had stumbled into. The letter went into a drawer, unsent and unfinished. But writing it helped. A year after that night in the rain, Emma enrolled in community college. She'd saved enough from the diner to cover tuition for 2 classes, Introduction to Psychology and English Composition. She worked mornings at the diner, attended classes in the afternoon, studied in the evenings. Her life was a carefully balanced equation of work and school and sleep, with little room for anything else. But it was her life. She'd built it from nothing. The second year brought more changes. Emma got promoted to shift supervisor at the diner, which meant slightly better pay and the responsibility of managing other waitresses. She took on a full course load at school, declaring a major in social work. The irony wasn't lost on her, the homeless girl studying to help other homeless people, but it felt right. She understood that world in ways her textbooks couldn't capture. One afternoon, Marcus called and asked her to come to the clubhouse. Emma had been there before for social events, but this felt different. When she arrived, she found the main room filled with club members, all standing in a loose circle around a young woman who couldn't have been more than 16. The girl sat hunched on a couch, arms wrapped around herself, eyes fixed on the floor. She was thin and dirty, wearing clothes that didn't fit. Emma recognized the posture immediately, the way she tried to make herself smaller, invisible. Marcus pulled Emma aside. Found her sleeping in the alley behind my work site. She won't talk to any of us. Won't give us her name. But she needs help, and I thought maybe she'd talk to you. Emma understood. She crossed the room slowly, sat down on the couch, leaving space between herself and the girl. Hey, Emma said softly. I'm Emma. The girl didn't respond. I know this is scary, Emma continued. A lot of big guys with leather jackets standing around staring at you. But they're not going to hurt you. They just want to help. Still nothing. Emma tried a different approach. I used to live on the street too, under an overpass about 2 miles from here. Had a tent made out of a blue tarp and some shopping carts. It leaked when it rained. The girl's eyes flickered toward Emma for just a second, then back to the floor. Worst part wasn't being hungry or cold, Emma said. Worst part was feeling invisible. Like the whole world just looked through you. Like you'd stopped being a real person. I'm still a person, the girl whispered. I know you are. What's your name? A long pause. Rebecca. Hi, Rebecca. How old are you? 16. How long have you been on the street? 2 months. Rebecca's voice was barely audible. My parents kicked me out. Emma felt anger flash through her chest, but kept her voice gentle. Do you have anywhere to go? Rebecca shook her head. Okay, here's what's going to happen. These guys, they're going to make sure you have a safe place to sleep tonight. Food, shower, clean clothes. No one's going to ask you for anything or expect anything. They're just going to help. Is that okay? Rebecca looked up at Emma fully for the first time. Her eyes were red-rimmed and exhausted. Why? Because someone helped me once when I had nothing. And now I help others. That's how it works. They set Rebecca up in a room at a facility the club supported, a transitional housing program for homeless youth. Emma visited 3 times a week, bringing food and clothes and just sitting with Rebecca while she slowly opened up about her life. It was hard work, watching someone else struggle through the same pain Emma had experienced, but it also felt purposeful, like all the suffering had been leading somewhere. 2 years became 3. Emma graduated with her associate degree and immediately enrolled in a 4-year university for her bachelor's in social work. The commute was longer, the classes harder, but she managed. The diner promoted her to assistant manager. She started saving money with actual goals in mind. A car, maybe someday a bigger apartment. The club celebrated her graduation with the same enthusiasm they'd shown for her GED. They closed down a bar for the night and threw a party that spilled into the early morning hours. Emma gave a short speech, trying to express gratitude for everything they'd done, but words felt inadequate. Marcus raised his beer in a toast. To Emma, who proved that character has nothing to do with circumstances, who gave when she had nothing, who became family. The room erupted in cheers. Later, as the party wound down, Cole found Emma outside getting some air. "You ever regret it?" he asked. "Giving me that sandwich?" Emma laughed. "How could I regret the best decision I ever made? Your life would have been easier if you just kept it, eaten it yourself. Maybe. Or maybe I would have stayed stuck under that overpass, too scared to trust anyone. You gave me something to build on. All of you did." Cole nodded slowly. "You know what the funny thing is? We thought we were helping you, but you helped us too. Reminded us why the club matters, what it's supposed to stand for." Emma watched the street, the occasional car passing by, the city lights reflecting off wet pavement. "Can I tell you something? That night, when you asked for help, I almost didn't give you the sandwich. I almost pretended I didn't hear you. I was so tired of being scared, of being vulnerable. But something in your voice sounded like you meant it when you said you wouldn't hurt me. I took a chance. I'm glad you did." "Me too." For years after that rainy night, Emma completed her bachelor's degree and got hired by a nonprofit organization serving homeless youth. Her job was to be a case manager, helping teenagers navigate the complex systems of shelters, housing assistance, job training, and education. She was good at it because she understood it from the inside. She still worked one breakfast shift a week at the diner, partly for the extra money, but mostly because Diane had become something like a mentor, and Emma didn't want to lose that connection. She still lived in the same apartment the club had given her, though she decorated it now, made it truly hers. Plants in the windows, photos on the walls, books on shelves. And she still saw the club regularly, attending dinners and events, riding on the back of Cole's motorcycle when the weather was nice, helping Sarah organize charity drives. 5 years, 10 years. Time kept moving. Emma got promoted to program director at the nonprofit. She started speaking at conferences about effective interventions for homeless youth. She wrote grants and secured funding and built partnerships with other organizations. The work was exhausting and often heartbreaking, but she couldn't imagine doing anything else. Rebecca, the girl they'd found in the alley, completed high school and went on to college. She called Emma every few months to update her on her life, to thank her again for that first conversation. Marcus retired from construction but stayed active in the club. Cole opened his own motorcycle repair shop. Sarah became a nursing supervisor. Life happened in all its messy, complicated glory. One evening, 15 years after giving away her last sandwich, Emma sat in her apartment with a stack of papers spread across her kitchen table. She was reviewing applications for a new housing program her organization was launching, reading stories of struggle and survival, deciding who to help first. There was a knock at her door. Emma answered it to find a teenage boy standing in the hallway, shifting nervously from foot to foot. "Can I help you?" Emma asked. "Are you Emma Rodriguez?" "I am. Marcus sent me. He said you might be able to help. I've been sleeping in the park for the past month, and I don't know what to do." Emma felt something shift in her chest, a recognition that went bone deep. This moment, this exact moment, it was the one she'd been moving toward for 15 years. She opened the door wider. "Come in. Let's talk." The boy hesitated on the threshold, hope and fear warring on his face. Emma waited patiently, remembering what it felt like to stand where he was standing, to not know if you could trust the kindness being offered. Finally, he stepped inside. Emma closed the door and gestured to the table. "Have a seat. Are you hungry?" He nodded. She made him a sandwich, the simple act carrying the weight of everything that had come before. As she set it in front of him, she thought about that rainy night, about Cole's broken-down motorcycle, about the choice she'd made to help a stranger when she had nothing to give. That sandwich had changed her life, had led to this apartment, this education, this career, this moment. The boy ate quickly, desperately, and Emma let him. When he finished, she asked his name. "Jason." "Hi, Jason. I'm Emma, and I'm going to help you figure this out. Not because you owe me anything, not because I want something from you, but because someone helped me once, and this is what we do. We help each other." She pulled out her phone and started making calls, setting in motion the same network of support that had caught her 15 years ago. The club, the nonprofit, the housing programs, the job connections, all of it built on a foundation of people who believed that everyone deserved a chance. As Emma worked, Jason sat at her table and looked around the apartment with wonder in his eyes. She recognized that look too. The disbelief that safety could exist, that kindness could be real. "You really used to be homeless?" he asked quietly. "I really did. For 3 months, I lived under an overpass in a tent made of tarp. I thought that was going to be my life forever." "What changed?" Emma smiled. "I gave my last sandwich to a stranger, and he brought 150 Hell's Angels to help me." "Sounds crazy, but that's what happened." Jason stared at her like she'd just told him a fairy tale. "The point isn't the motorcycle club," Emma continued. "The point is that help exists. Sometimes it comes from unexpected places. Sometimes all you have to do is take the first step, make the first gesture, trust the first time. The rest follows." Over the next weeks, Emma helped Jason navigate the same systems she'd once struggled through. She found him a bed at the youth shelter, connected him with job training programs, helped him enroll in school. It wasn't easy. There were setbacks and frustrations and moments when Jason wanted to give up. But Emma had been there. She knew the terrain, and she had the club behind her, ready to step in when official systems failed. 3 months after showing up at her door, Jason got his first paycheck from a part-time job at Marcus's construction company. 6 months later, he moved into his own apartment, a studio not unlike the one Emma had been given years before. At the 1-year mark, Jason invited Emma to dinner at his place. He'd cooked spaghetti, nothing fancy, but the apartment was clean and he'd clearly taken pride in the preparation. "I wanted to thank you," he said as they ate. "For everything. You already have. About 100 times. No, I mean really thank you. You didn't just help me get off the street. You showed me that I mattered, that my life had value even when I was at my lowest. That changed everything." Emma felt tears prick her eyes. "You always mattered, Jason. Sometimes it just takes the right person to remind you of that." "I want to do what you do," he said suddenly. "Help people. Make a difference. How do I start?" Emma told him about social work programs, about volunteering, about the long road of education and credentialing. But she also told him about the shortcut. Just start helping. Look for the people everyone else overlooks. Offer what you can, even if it's small. Show up. Keep showing up. That's what those bikers did for you. Jason asked. "Just showed up." "Over and over again. Still do, actually. I'm having dinner with Cole and Sarah tomorrow night. It's been 15 years, and they're still part of my life. That's what family means." 20 years after that rainy night, Emma stood in front of a room full of social workers, policymakers, and advocates at a national conference on homelessness. She was the keynote speaker, invited to talk about effective interventions and lived experience. She told them her story: the tent, the sandwich, the motorcycle club, the long climb back to stability. Some people looked skeptical at first. Hell's Angels don't fit the typical narrative of social services, but Emma didn't care. It was the truth. "The lesson isn't that we should rely on motorcycle clubs to solve homelessness," she said. "The lesson is that people respond to being seen as human, to being treated with dignity, to receiving help without judgment or conditions." That night, I made a choice to help someone even though I had almost nothing. That act of humanity sparked something that changed my entire life. She paused, looking out at the audience. Every person experiencing homelessness has that same humanity, that same capacity for resilience and growth. Our job isn't to save them. It's to create the conditions where they can save themselves. Sometimes that means housing. Sometimes it's food or medical care or job training. But always, it means seeing them as people first. The speech was well received. Afterward, people lined up to talk to her, to share their own stories, to ask for advice. Emma stayed until the last person had been heard, remembering what it felt like to need someone to listen. That evening, she called Marcus. "How'd it go?" he asked. "I told them about you guys. About what you did for me." Marcus laughed. "Bet that raised some eyebrows." "A few. But it's the truth. You saved my life. You saved your own life, Emma. We just gave you a platform to stand on while you did it." "Well, I'm grateful anyway. For the platform. For the family. For everything. You know what I'm grateful for?" Marcus said. "That Cole's bike broke down in exactly the right place at exactly the right time. That you were brave enough to help him. That we all got to be part of your story." After they hung up, Emma sat in her living room. She'd moved to a bigger place a few years back and thought about all the threads that had woven together to create her current life. The seemingly random events. The choices made in moments of desperation or compassion. The way small acts rippled outward in ways no one could predict. She thought about her mother, wished desperately that she could have seen all of this, could have known that Emma had made it through the darkness. And she thought about that sandwich. That stupid, simple, turkey sandwich from a homeless shelter that she'd handed to a stranger in the rain. Best investment she ever made. 25 years later, Emma retired from her position as executive director of one of the largest homeless youth organizations in the state. She'd spent a quarter-century in the field, helping thousands of young people find their way off the streets. The organization threw her a party. Former clients came to speak about what she'd meant to them. Colleagues presented her with awards and accolades. But the moment that mattered most came at the end of the evening, when Cole and Sarah walked in with Marcus in a wheelchair beside them. He'd had a stroke 2 years earlier, and his mobility was limited, but his eyes were as sharp as ever. "Couldn't let you retire without us," Marcus said. Emma knelt beside his wheelchair. "You came all the way across the city. Wouldn't miss it. Your family." The words still carried weight, even after all these years. They sat together while the party continued around them. For people connected by a sandwich and a rainy night and a choice to help when help was needed. "You ever wonder what would have happened if things had gone differently?" Sarah asked. "If Emma had kept that sandwich? I'd probably still be working as a mechanic," Cole said. "Maybe homeless again at some point. Who knows? I'd still be living under an overpass," Emma said quietly. "Or dead. One or the other." Marcus shook his head. "No, you would have found a way. You've got that in you. The sandwich just accelerated things. Maybe, but I wouldn't have had all of you. Wouldn't have learned what it means to be part of something bigger than myself." The party wound down. Emma said her goodbyes, accepted congratulations, promised to stay in touch. When everyone had left, she stood alone in the empty room, feeling the weight of the moment. An ending. A beginning. Both at once. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Hi, this is Rebecca. Just wanted to say congratulations on your retirement. You changed my life 20 years ago, and I never forgot it. Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible." Emma smiled through tears and typed back, "Thank you for letting me help. Pass it forward." The response came immediately, "I already am." Emma left the venue and walked to her car through the cool evening air. The city had changed over the years, neighborhoods gentrifying, new buildings rising where old ones had stood. But some things remained constant. The homeless population still existed, still struggled, still needed help. Her work wasn't done just because she'd retired from her official position. She drove across town to the overpass where her tent had once stood. The area had been cleared years ago, replaced by a small park and a community center. Progress, of a sort. But Emma knew there were other overpasses, other alleys, other places where people tried to survive the night. She parked and sat in her car, looking at the space where her old life had existed. It felt like 1,000 years ago and yesterday simultaneously. A figure emerged from the shadows near the park. Young, maybe early 20s, carrying a backpack and moving with the characteristic wariness of someone living on the street. Emma watched as the person settled onto a bench, pulling a thin jacket tighter against the evening chill. Emma got out of her car. She kept protein bars in her glove compartment for exactly this reason. She approached slowly, non-threateningly. "Hey," she said gently. "Are you hungry?" The person looked up, startled, defensive. "I'm fine. I have some food if you want it." No strings attached. Suspicion warred with hunger on their face. Finally, they nodded. Emma handed over the protein bars and a bottle of water from her car. "There's a shelter 3 blocks north. They do dinner service until 9. And a drop-in center on 5th Street that can help with housing resources." "I know. I've been trying. Keep trying. It gets better. I promise." "How would you know?" Emma smiled. "Because I used to sleep right over there, in a tent made of blue tarp. And I gave my last sandwich to a stranger. 25 years later, I just retired from running a homeless youth program. So yeah, I know. It gets better." She handed over a card with the organization's information. "If you need help, call this number. Ask for Jason. Tell him Emma sent you." The person stared at the card like it might disappear. "Why are you doing this?" "Because someone helped me once, and I'm still paying it forward." Emma walked back to her car, feeling the familiar ache of wanting to do more, to fix everything, to save everyone. But she'd learned over the years that you can't save everyone. You can only show up, offer what you can, plant seeds, and trust they'll grow. She drove home, back to her house in a quiet neighborhood, back to the life she'd built from rubble and kindness. Inside, she made herself dinner and ate it slowly, appreciating every bite. Then she settled into her favorite chair with a book and read until her eyes grew heavy. Before bed, she walked to her dresser and opened the bottom drawer. Inside was a leather jacket, worn and faded, the patches on it outdated by decades. Cole's jacket from that first night. He'd told her to keep it when she tried to return it, said it was a gift. She pulled it out and held it to her face, breathing in the scent of old leather and memory. Then she hung it carefully in her closet and went to bed. That night, Emma dreamed of rain and motorcycles and a sandwich wrapped in plastic. She dreamed of being cold and scared and at the end of her rope. And she dreamed of the moment she decided to help anyway, to give what little she had, to trust that kindness would return. In the dream, she stood at a crossroads. One path led to the tent under the overpass, to isolation and fear and slow decline. The other led to a massive assembly of motorcycles, engines roaring, riders waiting. She walked toward the motorcycles without hesitation. When Emma woke, sunlight was streaming through her windows. She lay in her comfortable bed, in her warm house, surrounded by the life she'd built. And she thought about a simple truth she'd learned 25 years ago on a rainy night under an overpass. When you give from the heart, even when you have nothing left to give, the universe has a way of giving back. Sometimes in ways you never expected. Sometimes through people you'd never have imagined. But always, the act of giving transforms the giver as much as the receiver. Emma had given a sandwich to a stranger, and 150 Hell's Angels had given her a future. The exchange was more than fair.